All right, here we go. We back with another one. Gentlemen, how y'all feeling?
Hey,
I'm
yo.
Houston, we have a problem.
What you gonna do? 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 What you gonna do?
Oh, yeah.
Woo! What's up, brothers?
Brother Brian, how you doing?
What's cracking?
We got brother Hugh. We got the real Dwayne Allen. Y'all know what we do. You said it first, realness. Last time we was here, we because we missed last week's show, a lot of stuff going on. Quite frankly, it's all good. But unfortunately, we lost the bad guy, Razor Ramon. So I want to give both of y'all an opportunity to reflect if that's what y'all want to do.
Man,
By all
Razor Ramon,
means.
one of my favorites, man. We had this discussion not too long ago, Brian. We was talking about what got you into wrestling, or what's like your first wrestling moment or your first wrestling memory. And what did I tell you? The Razor Ramon Shawn Michaels ladder match at WrestleMania. That's the first thing I remember. And like I've always been a huge Razor Ramon fan. Not too much Scott Hall when he went to the other brand, WCW, but he was still my guy either way. I loved him, man. Like he was a smart guy. He was very very influential in the wrestling business, and we're definitely gonna miss him. So
Yeah. How about you, realness?
Yeah, man. Razor Ramon was he was a childhood staple in my house. You know what I mean? I'll always talk about that. My first real memories of professional wrestling when I was younger is, kind of tailing behind my brother. And Razor Ramon was one of those characters that you saw, in the toy chest. You saw him on the magazines, you saw him on the tapes, and then on Saturday mornings. And then the rest is history as he moved on to WCW. And even after WCW, Razor Ramon was always one of my. He was my Barry Windham. You know what I mean? He was always I was a bigger guy, right? And, everybody. If anybody knows me, they know that my dream was always to be a professional wrestler. And he was one of the guys that I always looked up to because he was a taller guy, he was a bigger guy, and he always had a reputation for being able to work with everybody, to work multiple styles in the ring, but also have the charisma to sell. He would have some of the silliest moments, but I mean, it just he always found a way to be entertaining. I'm talking about a real mind for the business. Even after he left WWE back in 2002 when he got released, he was in rough shape. I followed him all the way to like TNA. I remember his match with his NWA World Title match with Ron the Truth Killings. The angle was trying to tease the fact that maybe Scott Hall would finally have a chance to hold the world title, and it was a selling point for TNA in the early years, and they were still doing things in Nashville, at the Asylum. You know what I mean? And then just he was a guy I would go and watch his indie stuff. Even when he wasn't in the best shape, that's how much of a Scott Hall fan I was.
Yeah.
There were certain guys that I was just fans of outside of WWE that I always, as long as they were being themselves, I always. I would gravitate towards those guys no matter where they were. Sean Waltman was another one. Billy Gunn is another one. You know what I mean? Those are guys that I always follow. And Scott Hall was right in the mix of it. I think the biggest thing about Scott Hall was that he had an opportunity to kind of change his life around. His obvious mistakes in the past was enough to, cause his body to deteriorate and take a toll on his life. But I think the fact that he mentally got himself in a better place, that he got himself spiritually in a better place, as a believer in Christ myself, I can appreciate that, he had that opportunity to do that early on. Although, Shawn Michaels and all those other guys, they'd be the first to tell you he wasn't the kind of guy to wear his faith on his sleeve because he didn't want to be judged, for
Right.
his past. But it was well documented that he had gotten himself together. So, just knowing I get a chance to eventually meet him one day is, something to look forward to. But that's the part to me that he was able to get himself together. We were able to give him his flowers while he could still smell them. He's a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer. He got to have one last WrestleMania moment with the NWO and WCW when they faced off when Sting and Triple H faced off at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to do his own documentaries. He got to tell his story. And he'll truly be missed. Scott Hall is a guy that we can sit here and talk about for hours, but he meant that much to me and so many wrestling fans around the world, and including his family and those who were close to him. So my heart goes out to them, and all those who are still mourning his passing. And as we as fans do our best to live out his legacy as his fans. The fandom of Scott Hall doesn't go anywhere. His influence is obvious. That's why where do you think I got the gold chains from? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Having everybody knows me. I always do the Scott Hall walk every time I walk through a door. If it's a tight space,
In church.
Same thing. That influence is always going to live on. And if you thought it was bad before, trust me, I'm definitely turning it up. Just in remembrance of him. So,
One thing I noticed during this time was just the impact he had on pop culture. If I really think about it, I've been, y'all here, so I got help now. Because I was really trying to think. I said, I think he may be one of the most influential wrestlers never to hold like a major world championship. You think about, like you said, you with the chains, and how many people we seen do the walk, how many people we seen with toothpicks. Brother Hugh always wore a toothpick. He still
Always
a toothpick. You know, for me, like his music, when I started playing drums, his theme music was one of the ones I wanted to play because it's so catchy. You just think about a lot of stuff, and then you see people that's not in the wrestling no more, but they don't just say Scott Hall at the time, because and one of the things people got to remember, when he was Scott Hall, that's when wrestling was cool. But when he was Razor Ramon, it was most of us were kids, and he's a lot of people's favorite wrestler. I always say the perfectly built wrestlers are like Randy Orton and The Rock, but I also got to throw Scott Hall in there. And he kind of like, he had a huge influence on The Rock. Pat Patterson told The Rock, your punches are, look at Scott Hall, because you look at Scott Hall's working punches. So I think he had like, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he had like the biggest influence in wrestling and people in general that was never a world champion.
I mean, when you look at his moments alone, you know what I mean? He had so many standout moments as far as his career in every kind of aspect of his professional wrestling career going down the line. Like when I remember the first big moment I remember about Scott Hall was watching one of the old tapes where he 1 2 3 Kid had beat him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that, and Scott Hall was a big deal when that happened. So for him, for 1 2 3 Kid to kind of one up him and kickstart that feud, that was the first real feud that I remember, as a kid. And then you look at what he did when he defected and went to WCW. He showed up. That was an iconic moment, and we've heard that promo replicated by everybody that's jumped ship from one other wrestling company to another.
Yep.
We've heard that's a version of that promo. And those are lasting memories, man. Scott Hall was just a superstar. And you say, well, not necessarily by WWE standards of what a superstar is, but if you have a guy that has that much influence and can most wrestlers will talk about that, the title doesn't make the wrestler, but the wrestler makes the title. You know what I mean? Scott Hall was a guy that never held a world title, but he's always been in that conversation. He's always been talked about in those same circles because that's how much of an impact he had in everything that he did. His presence, his matches, the moments that he carried, even when he popped up in in TNA, and they had a late run, I guess 2009, 2010-ish with the band. You know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
so happy to see him there with Sean Waltman and Kevin Nash. You know, and then it's there's so many moments. You know, even their return, the NWO. You know, when the Outsiders, all their promos, all the stuff that they did, those are moments that lasted like in the minds of wrestling fans everywhere. Like it impacted
Mhm.
generations, not even just us, but like multiple. Because there's kids that watch this stuff now that still feel the same way about those moments that we did when we saw it live or when we saw it in real time. You know,
Mhm.
that's just a testament of how great he was at what he did, how he thought about the business, how his mind worked when it came to the business. So that's something that can't be replicated. But you see his imprints everywhere, and on so many of our favorite performers going forward.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Scott Hall will definitely be missed, but like y'all said, just great words. His legacy will definitely live on. Um, us man. Speaking of legacies and people creating their legacies, Monday Night Raw, Stone Cold Kevin Owens.
It's Stone Cold.
Pure genius.
Talk about it, man.
Kevin Owens, man. It seems like he's one of those guys where they trust his creative freedom, right?
Mhm.
Like who else would you trust in that type of spot? We've seen this done before. We saw it with the Miz, do it with the Rock. You know, it's been a ton of superstars that have imitated other superstars, but for Kevin Owens to pull off what he did in 2022, the way that he did it, I thought it was hilarious.
Mhm.
First of all, I was like, he looked like him because he was, Kevin Owens has slimmed down so much. But when that music shattered, like just the way that they're teasing the live audience and the audience at home has been really, really fun going into WrestleMania because there's a lot of twists and turns. We hear rumors, and I like the way they're booking their shows, when it comes to these type of segments because they're playing off the rumors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They really have never really clearly defined what's supposed to happen between Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Right?
Yep.
Think about it. Stone Cold Steve Austin showed up at every WrestleMania, especially when in Texas. They never had to make an announcement about it. He just kind of showed up. Right?
Mhm.
Now they're kind of like alluding to, are they going to wrestle? And they won't say if it's actually a wrestling match or what exactly is going on. So that's one part of it. Kevin Owens, of course, biting off more than he can chew. He's speaking out of turn when it comes to Austin. And that music hits, cold open. Everybody thought Austin was ready to come up to WrestleMania season to address what's going on. Nope, it's Kevin Owens with a bald cap on. And then he's talking and he's cutting his promo, saying his piece, and he pulls a Shawn Michaels.
Right.
And then when the music shatters again, he sells it like, oh shoot, he unbuckles the and it's funny. Here's how funny Kevin Owens is. He unstraps the knee braces. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
You're right.
Like that's the first thing he did was unstrap the knee braces and look to the audience. And I was like, oh yeah, he definitely got him again. Like I waited for a second, just like everybody else did. Just that glass shattering is so iconic. When you hear it, if like you freeze for a minute, you freeze for a quick moment. And then when he's like,
Did,
oh, I got you guys again, I said, oh yeah, he's got us eating out the palm of his hands, man.
did y'all watch the crowd reaction in the beginning? Like when you first see like him walk out there, you see the crowd go crazy,
It
and
went
then
wild.
they and then they came down because it was like that's what gave it away for the home audience. Like, oh, it's not him because the camera was zoomed all the way out, which
Right.
I thought was shot perfectly,
Mhm.
and it had you believing like, wait, Austin's here, and I kept thinking, I was like, my TV self going, Austin ain't here because they would have advertised it. They would have said something, right? And I'm glad like the fans ate everything like he did. Like you said, having everybody in the palm of his hand, that's not easy to do. And that's something Kevin Owens is really good at.
I mean, and they did it in Chi-Town. They had to do it in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
because Chicago is such a raw and authentic reaction when it comes to anything professional wrestling related. That's what they're known for. You know,
Yeah.
we're kind of known for that too. Maybe not on the same level, but on a similar level in Baltimore. We're known for that. Like you're gonna get a raw, authentic reaction, and even like at the end,
Philly.
that just
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Philly's another one. No, you're absolutely right. Philly's another one. Philly's another
Mhm.
place. Same thing. You're gonna get a raw, authentic reaction. And he played to it so well, and they kind of got it. You know what I mean? Like for instance,
Mhm.
when they threw the broken skull beers in the ring and he dropped it, and the fans were like, yeah, oh, like they went up and they went down with
Yeah.
him, and then he threw a second one and he missed it. And I was like, and then he fit like I thought the second was over, but just those little nuances made it fun. And then at the end of it, he cracks the beers open like he's ready to have a beer bash, and he literally pours it on, the guy who was responsible. And I'm like, man, Kevin Owens is the only person I know that he becomes more popular as he gets worse with his heel nose. Him and Seth Rollins, man, I think they've redefined what it means to be a heel, because it's like, it's a different type of hate. It's almost a humorous hate. It's like, oh, this guy's like, I feel like I get got every week fooling around with both of those guys. They always do something to make me like, oh, he got me again. Like, just when I think something's going to happen to him, when they're going to catch it, nope, they get over on me, and then I'm stuck. But it's fun, man. They make the show fun to watch.
I have no input, man. The man was out there just living his best life. I mean,
He was
that's
living
all
a dream, man.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. You get to see these wrestlers
that was
out
teenage.
there.
That was teenage Kevin Owens, man.
Second. I loved every second of it, man. Dwayne pretty much hit all the good points. So
yeah, one of the next ones I want to move on to, because you said it, Dwayne, go right into it. Seth Rollins, and like you said, addressing the rumors. He was like, oh, now I know there's rumors about a certain person. I love how they not said Cody's name, but they've been throwing things out there, the dashing references and all that other stuff. But what makes, like, a lot of people, obviously the internet complain about everything, but I'm actually, at first I was like, all right, why is he facing Kevin Owens? Like, this is stupid, because I wanted to see Cody, right? But then this week it happens again with AJ Styles and Edge. Clearly that's not going to happen. And I love Edge's involvement to preserve the match that he's supposed to get, because that's a personal thing right there too. So, but then you have Seth Rollins just throwing fits, becoming, giving the internet more meme material by his reactions. And I hope, I at this point, no, honestly, I hope we don't get Cody Rhodes, if that's what it's going to be. I hope we don't get it on Raw. I hope it's Seth Rollins comes out there and then boom, it happens.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of taking us on this roller coaster before WrestleMania. You know what I mean? The build-up is a little bit different this year for some reason. It may just be because of post-COVID bounce back, but it's like, man, they're not defining exactly what's going to happen. You know what I mean? They're kind of like, I'm like, usually this late in the game, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I mean? And you kind of, that's what we get on shows like these and we discuss, hey, this is what's going to happen. What do we think is going to go down? But it's like, they're taking us all the way to about 2 weeks before Mania,
right?
As of this recording. And then all of a sudden it's like, they're really going somewhere with this. And it's been fun because it's like that, like you said, they're not shying away from the rumors. They kind of address, even Chicago at one point was just like Cody Rhodes. And I was like, oh yeah, everybody's waiting for it. Everybody's just waiting for it. And it's just like, man, they're teasing us and they're just taking us for this ride. And they just have the perfect guy that can pull it off. Like Seth Rollins has gone to a different level because the stories that they're telling, like he keeps getting these opportunities. And it's like, man, WrestleMania is a week and a half away. Like who's like, how's he going to fit onto this card? And I think it's smart that they have not kind of fully ran down what's going to be on the show already. Because in the back of your mind, say, well, maybe the show's booked already. But you don't know that because they've been kind of hush-hush about what's going to happen at WrestleMania. You probably got one more week before the go-home show. And then it's like, okay, we're here now. But my question to you guys is, how do you think, do you mention Cody Rhodes a week before WrestleMania to sell WrestleMania? Or do you think that WrestleMania is going to be already sold and you just save it for that big surprise for that moment?
I'll let you go, Hugh. You go first.
Honestly, I don't even think you need Cody Rhodes at this point. Like, you have so many different people that's already selling WrestleMania. You got, I think, the Pat McAfee match. You have what's the dude, Logan Paul. You have all these celebrities coming in and the big time matches, your Edge and your AJ Styles. Those are the type of matches. Of course, your title match. Those are already selling. They're your ticket bringer. They bring in the tickets, the big names. So, like, honestly, you don't even really need Cody at WrestleMania. Well, before WrestleMania. If anything, I'm looking at him for him to show up maybe the night after WrestleMania if he doesn't show up at WrestleMania for that big pop.
Now that makes sense though. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we put it that way. It makes sense. Go ahead, Brian.
yeah, I was thinking that too. I think because it's Seth Rollins, I think he gets that reward of that WrestleMania match moment paycheck. I don't think like I said earlier, I just don't think you need him. Cody, to me, Cody's not going to make or break ticket sales, but what he will do is give you that pop, that moment when if he comes out, and then he comes to WrestleMania. Just imagine this too. One of the things they've done good about this is the anticipation. I don't think Cody Rhodes has ever been this highly anticipated or valuable in his career. Because it was
No,
just
of
like,
course not.
yeah, he was jumped right into WWE. Even when he started going on his excursion, it was like, okay, yeah, we got Cody Rhodes, but this anticipation, and hear Vince saying, well, if we just tease him, then every week the cheers will get bigger and bigger, and you'll be a bigger star than you've ever been.
Right.
And he comes out there, and I think what happens is when he walks out there, he's going to soak it in. You can see him kind of doing the tears and all that, just soaking everything in. Like, I'm back home. Because like no matter where you go, All In and all that other stuff, ain't nothing like WrestleMania, especially with 100,000 people in the stadium. So that's why I think he shows up at WrestleMania. I mean, if he shows up at Raw, that'll be cool too. But either way, I just think he shows up at Mania. I always look for the surprises. At WrestleMania, I'm always looking for the moments, the surprises, and the double cross. And I think Cody will be the surprise.
That's what's being sold. Yep. Most
Yeah, no
definitely.
doubt, man. I mean, you got to remember, WrestleMania is about moments, right? And
Mhm.
this is that was the last place we saw Cody Rhodes, because after that WrestleMania, he asked for his release.
Oh, it was right afterwards.
Yeah.
It was literally
Wow. I
that
forgot
was
about that.
that was his last. I believe that was his last match in WWE.
In Texas.
Was at AT&T Stadium. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I mean, I know that was it was a huge moment, because that ladder match was epic. For the Intercontinental Championship after Neville got hurt for grabs. You know what I mean? And Matt Cardona and Zack Ryder ended up winning. But like I said, that was the last time we saw Cody. So it would only make sense for him to make his triumphant return and then give us an explanation the Monday after.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
The one thing I'm eager to see is how long will he stay relevant in the WWE? You know what I'm saying? So like, for instance, let's say maybe the first month he's still hot. What happens month 2, month 3? Does he start to fall off? Does he just become the Cody Rhodes of all and just fall in place? Like, I want to see like the storylines. I want to see the creativity behind the storytelling, just to kind of like keep him relevant in that upper mid card level. I don't want to see him drop again, because then like, what's the point of even bringing him back in? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, the WrestleMania moment, that's cool. All right, but now you stuck with what you had before. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm kind of eager to see.
yeah, I think Cody will be fine. I think he's proven himself at this point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think Cody's kind of established himself as a top guy, like not necessarily a world champion type guy, but somebody that's always in the mix. Like before he was relatively unproven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And outside of his dedicated storylines, if you didn't have anything for him, it was gone. And then he got stuck in his last storyline, which was Stardust. That was meant to be a brother thing,
Right.
and it kind of got overly popular, and he kind of got stuck in it. And he did such a good job in it. They didn't want him to leave that when he was ready to move on. You know what I mean? But look at a guy like a Drew McIntyre. You know what I mean?
Right.
Here's a guy that got released, that left and came back, and he's been in the mix. Like Drew McIntyre is kind of established to the point where he don't got to be in a world title picture. He's always still going to be Drew McIntyre. No matter what he does, it's going to be relevant. And I think Cody's going to be in a similar spot. I don't know how far he goes in regards to,
Yeah, that's
you
at
know,
least what we're hoping for. Yeah.
yeah. I think he's a brand. I think they know him to be a brand that can make money now.
Right.
He's not something that they have to create for. His name draws on its own. You know what I mean? because now you get that WCW jumping ship to WWE feel to it, where now, we've seen Perry Saturn go at it with all the guys in WCW, but now we get to see him go at it against like Road Dogg and Val Venus, and it's the fresh matchups that give people enough excitement, where it's something familiar, but it's also something new at the same time. I think we'll get that with Cody, because now there's a ton of matchups. That's the biggest thing that I've always enjoyed about, that I always will like WWE over AEW or Impact or any other promotion right now. It's just that there's more matchups and potential to do more than anywhere else, because it's like once you have your great matches and your big time matchups, then there's nothing else. And I know that it's been some critique about AEW and CM Punk having lackluster stuff going on now, because it's like, okay, well, you did everything that's worth, everybody kind of drawing, but now you kind of just dancing with fresh faces, and now you have to create a buzz for something new. But it's like, there's limitless matchups, that I think Cody can go back and have, and there's so much for him to do. So and like I say, he's a name that they can really play off of, and he's a name that they can dedicate to they can do more things with him and his father and his family's legacy in good conscience now, because he's back with the company. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a guy that's going to get lost in the shuffle like he once was. I can't promise what their plans are for him going forward, but I know that he's a fan favorite. He's proven to be like a Diamond Dallas. He's definitely a people's champion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, that was the one spot that he held. That was why he was considered the heart and soul of AEW, because no matter what spot he was in, even when people want him to turn heel, it was just because they were bored with what he was doing in AEW. Like, there was nothing else more for him to do in a lot of other areas. But I look forward to see, man.
He was getting on him, and I was like, "Why y'all hate Cody so much?"
I didn't get it either. I was like, so wait, y'all want him to turn heel, stuff like that? Because I think they just were tired of the same thing every day, and I don't blame Cody for that. I just think that's just bad creative. I think that was just bad. Too much freedom. There was no plan. It was just, plenty of people have said in AEW, there's no real creative team. There's no real agents you have to report to. You just kind of run it past Tony, and he has a final say. But it's like, who's going to come up with something? You're still writing for television, right? And you have to create these. Anytime you're writing for television, you have to develop characters, and you have to develop character arcs. So you have to figure out why this character is this way and why they're going in the direction they're going. And that's how they write professional wrestling. That's what people don't guess, why they hire TV writers now. They don't hire wrestling fans to be writers, because they're writing for television.
Exactly.
That's the difference between WWE's product versus everything. You don't have to like it, because what it does is it does compromise pro wrestling, because you're no longer just watching a wrestling show.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's, some people like it, some people don't. Some people prefer it, some people don't prefer it. Whatever you like. But I think that's the biggest thing, and I think we'll be able to see that more with the Cody Rhodes, because there's more there's more meat on the bone that they can do with Cody Rhodes now than they could back then with Stardust, and then leaving Stardust and then trying to rebuild Cody Rhodes. And especially during the time where he wasn't a priority. He's coming in as a priority now, because he comes in with a whole just a completely different air about him now. Like, he's valuable. He jumped ship to a company that he helped build. So now it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna use that to throw in their competition's face as much as possible. If you think Vince McMahon doesn't thrive for that, you don't know that guy very well. So there's no doubt in my mind that creative shouldn't be a problem. But I think that's what the issue was with him in AEW. Man, he just got stale after a while. Yeah. I didn't think he was stale. I was a Cody Rhodes fan. So,
and obviously he's very marketable now too, doing TV shows and other ventures outside of wrestling too. So
and that's the thing, and that's the biggest thing. He's a crossover star. So think about it. Where he was back then is he was just a professional wrestler, right? But now he's so much more than that. So he doesn't need professional wrestling to be happy. You know what I mean? When you're young, you're hungry, and you want to work. But he's past all that. Like, he's done all that already now. Now he's like, look, now I'm ready to be a full-fledged superstar. I want to be able to wrestle, but I want to be able to do PR moves. I want to be able to host TV shows. Like, guys are becoming more well-rounded entertainers instead of just, I want to go out there and wrestle. Right. I think that's been the biggest knock and criticism against a guy like Daniel Bryan. He loves wrestling, right? But wrestling is no longer what it was.
Right.
I mean, it's cool to like wrestling and love wrestling and be all about the wrestling, but there's very little of that just because professional wrestling doesn't survive without entertainment, not in today's climate.
Exactly.
And I think that's You go ahead.
I was gonna say, just look what WWE, look what hosting, holds WrestleMania, Peacock. So you can, see just opportunities for Cody right there. Whether it's a reality show or crossover opportunity, you know, like he has such a huge opportunity coming, and it's not like where it's like TNT where they don't like the wrestling anyway.
And that's one thing. And that's another thing. I think Cody Rhodes also comes back a smarter businessman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't think he's just this young and hungry green talent that's like, I just want to come out here and wrestle and show what I can do. I think he knows his value. And if I was a betting man, I'm assuming that this brother probably has a lot of stuff written into his contract
Yep.
that provides him a lot of creative freedom. Maybe not necessarily with the wrestling product or his character, but with him either doing other things or being used in other areas, kind of like the Miz.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, he's on Miz status. Miz is main event talent, and Miz is not always in the world title picture and stuff like that, but he is an established product at this point. I think Cody Rhodes has that same, like, guys. I remember Sami Zayn said it best. He said, "Look, you can hear what you want about people that are either not here or used to be here." He said, "But everybody here is not disgruntled with their spot and their place in this company."
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the guys that said, I'm happy with what I'm doing here. He said, I feel like the part that made me resign was because I feel like I have the company's trust. They allow me to be creative and do what I do and have input. Like, everybody wants that freedom and because WWE is known for being a micromanaging conglomerate, right?
Yep.
And the biggest thing that most talent complain about is that freedom. CM Punk complained about not being able to say what he really felt. RVD said the same thing back in One Night Stand at ECW, that pay-per-view. Like, man, I got tired of saying cool dude or whatever, that I had more to say. It's about that. Bray Wyatt is another one. They want that creative freedom. And once you feel like you've gained the company's trust to be that person, to have that type of freedom, for some of them, they're okay with that. Like, same thing, man. I'm happy with my spot. This is who I am. And I feel like they trust me. So when I make a suggestion or I decide to do something, I'm able to do it. And that's what people value the most, because when you have a guy like him, he's not trying to be world champion. You know what I mean? Not to say that's not an aspiration of his, but where he is right now, he has a spot in the company that's valued, and they need what he does, because there's no one else in wrestling that does what Sami Zayn does, like on no show.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You're not gonna forget who Sami Zayn is, because he can shut it down better than anybody else. He can put on a 5-star match if need be.
Right.
So you're talking about a guy that's a jack of all trades, but says, "Look, man, this is where I'm at, and I appreciate where I'm at, and I'm going to keep getting better at what I do, because there's nobody out here that can do what I do." I think that it shows a sign of security in yourself, that you believe in who you are as a talent, and that you're satisfied. And I think that's exactly the attitude and the approach that Cody Rhodes probably comes back to the big conglomerate to. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, he can always go back to AEW. Like, why wouldn't he go back?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we watch guys jump ship back and forth to Jeff Jarrett back and forth to WWF, WCW, WWF, WCW multiple times. So he could go to WWE, have a good run. As soon as he gets stale, he can go back to the AEW if they're still in existence, if he wanted to, and it'll look like a big deal to AEW again, because he's back home, to them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's only up from here.
Yeah, I want to switch things up a little bit. We are in WrestleMania season, so let's do this.
Cool.
Time to travel down memory road. Realness, you got anything on you watching?
As a matter of fact, I am watching the best of Stone Cold Steve Austin in the WWE section of Stupid Peacock.
Ironically, you said Stone Cold Steve Austin. When we started this show, I have WrestleMania 13 on. It's 25 years
Just watch
ago.
that match, by the way.
Yep. Me too. I'm at the point where your boy is coming out because his knee is hurting, so he's unable to have a match. So he's
Leave
gonna sit
HB
there,
Shizzle alone.
do commentary. We all know this was supposed to be the rematch WrestleMania, but I'm sitting here, right? And as we talking about WrestleMania, thinking about 100,000 people, the evolution of WrestleMania, right? And you look at, like, this is just regular arena in Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon, I believe, just a regular arena. WrestleMania 12, Anaheim, and this is before stadiums. You know, not a lot. Yeah, not a lot of emphasis put on like anything. You know, of course, Shawn Michaels had his entrance. People may forget, and you know, me being a WrestleMania aficionado, WrestleMania 8, Tatanka before his match with Rick Martel, which was like the calm down match before Hogan and Sid. He had an entrance where he had, you know, the Native Americans in the ring. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a WrestleMania entrance, you know, and, you know, they were like far and few in between. You know, you can remember DDP driving the car where, like, even I was listening to Kurt Angle say he wished he would have done that more. He wished he would have put more emphasis on his WrestleMania entrances.
Sure.
But, you know, you sit back, and one of the things I noticed over the time, right, as I always go back and watch all these WrestleManias, you can see where the business was based on where WrestleMania was, right? You look at WrestleMania 11, 12, 13, just the standard arena, 14 as well. 15, even though the Attitude Era was hot, and 16, it was hot, it was still in, you know, the regular arenas. 17, 18, 19, boom, stadiums.
Yeah, explosion. Yep.
Yeah, you know, now 20, they went back home for the Madison Square Garden. 21 and 22, back to the smaller arenas. The business was, you know, that era that everybody loves, the ruthless aggression era. It wasn't the Attitude Era, right? But then it's like once 23 came, you could see like boom. At that point, WrestleMania was selling itself, so like everybody was gonna come regardless,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
But yeah, so you know, we got you know, those some of the stuff I've been watching. How about you, Hugh? I know you said you was watching some stuff before we went on air.
For some reason, I've been on a big Macho Man kick, bro.
Ooh, yeah.
Watching all promos and WrestleMania was it 3 with Steamboat recently, and 5-star, man, 5-star. But yeah, that's basically what I've been watching, honestly. Just all.
I want to ask y'all about that match.
What's that?
Now that, you know, I mean, obviously there's been so many WrestleMania matches, right? Y'all both Macho Man fans. Where do you rank that match? Is there a better WrestleMania match to you than Savage Steamboat?
Take a Shawn Michaels 2.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of something else.
I mean, it's don't get me wrong, it's not too many above Savage Steamboat. That's why it's known as Savage Steamboat. You know what I mean? Like out of all the things, like that's you know you got to be that good when like your match is the standard for what a WrestleMania match should be.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I mean, like anything, like I said, Taker and Shawn, their last 2 matches were up there. I don't think anything probably beats that, but it's arguable though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not too many outside your favorites, man. But when you look at Savage Steamboat, for a match that was, you know, for the Intercontinental Championship, it set a pace for what a WrestleMania should be.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like that wasn't just it wasn't a run of the mill match. It was a match on a national stage that had national time, that carried a show. And you got to think about the time period in which that took place in. You know, that our attention spans were a little bit more different. You know, back in those days, not that we were really alive to enjoy that, or, you know, old enough to really get into it, you know, when it was going down at the moment. But it was like, man, you got to understand, you know, there was no distractions. There was no phones. There was no, you know, there was no radio. There was nothing. Like when you were in that arena, when you were in the stadium, like you were there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And what was in front of you, you were dialed in. And I think Savage and Steamboat knew that. You know what I mean? So that also, it also affects how you have to work your match. And I think I believe it was Savage that called the match and everything. You know, he's infamous for having, you know, his notepad and his paper with all the entire match laid out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, having a dance partner as athletic and as agile and as capable as of Ricky Steamboat. You know what I mean? They pulled off something that looks so natural. It looks so fluid, to the point that became a standard of what a certain type of WrestleMania match would even pass for. You know what I mean? And we've seen tons of superstars try to replicate that type of magic, man. But it's just like sometimes just right time, right place, right partners. You know what I mean? And it's the crazy part is we haven't heard of anything that impactful until Shawn and Taker. Their last two.
2 years later.
Like you can pick whatever ones you want. You know what I mean? Either one. You know, those are the only ones that you hear. Like when you hear about a WrestleMania match, outside of Savage and Steamboat. So
yeah, when I mean, me and brother Hugh was together over Brandon Guy's house for 25, and I remember the moment that match ended for Shawn and Taker. I said, "That's the greatest match I've ever seen at WrestleMania." And I had watched, I had been through Hogan and Rock, Austin and Rock 3 times, Bret and Shawn, Shawn and Razor. I've been through all these matches,
all great matches in their own right.
all great matches. But like you said, it was just that Shawn and Taker match, and y'all know, like, I mean, I like Shawn Michaels. I like getting on, Dwayne, Corey, Blue about HBK versus Bret Hart. But in all seriousness, I like Shawn Michaels. He's not my top 5 favorite, but I respect all his work. But like that match right there, just like I was like, wow, and I couldn't wait to watch it again and again and again. And it was just something special. The same thing, huh?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and obviously, like Savage and Steamboat, what made that match so good, like it's sometimes you gotta like to appreciate a match, you had to been like watching wrestling when it was happening, right? So like I'm not gonna appreciate a Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2
right
the way say my uncle would, because my uncle, who was a Hulkamaniac, was remember Hogan getting his ribs busted open and crawling back and being determined to wrestle there, right? But
right, yeah.
This, sure, yeah, you see the promos. You saw the promos of Savage hurting Steamboat's throat and all that. But just taking all that aside, you just give me the match, and it was just phenomenal.
I think the only thing that came closest to it was Bret Shawn at 12. The only drawback that you can probably say about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart at 12 was that professional wrestling wasn't its most popular at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like think about Savage Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. First of all, that was the first indoor attendance record that they really seriously broke, 93,000 plus.
Yep.
Right. That was a big deal. And wrestling was hot. Like it was pop culture. It was in. It was, you know what I mean. It was it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean. And then, like I said, you have Shawn Brett that to me, rival with just as good of a match. Like that's a match that we talk about too. But that's a match that wrestling fans talk about. You know what I mean. And like it's confined to a smaller group because, like I said, that's a classic matchup. But that was on a rough time in the business. WrestleMania 12. The wrestling business wasn't in the greatest shape financially, nor was it as popular. It wasn't as embedded in pop culture as it would explode almost a year and a half, 2 years later.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't give that the edge. In all fairness, but then, like I said, then you look at Taker Shawn. At that point, they were at the twilight of their careers. I believe am I using the correct term? You know what I mean? And it was like they were legends at that point.
Yeah,
and either one of them had anything else left to do. Although Taker would stick around for a significant amount of time after that, but it was like, man, look what these guys are doing. And it was like they almost put a whole roster to shame because it's like, well, how do you sit there and follow that? And then he had the nerve to follow it up the following year.
Thank God it was the main event.
Yeah, because usually in previous past they'd have had that match before the world title match, and everybody would have been burned out. But yeah, man, it's Mania is about moments.
And you look, you just brought up something, right? And my bad for cutting you off, but
no, you good.
You brought up something, and as you was talking about Bret and Shawn, literally Bret Hart walks on my screen, right? And you said the matches that they had was at a time when wrestling was not at its most popular, right? The WrestleMania 12 match. Could you imagine Bret Hart? I know we had to get to Austin. Because the way Vince McMahon runs the WWE, we would have gotten to Austin because
Mhm.
Vince is always about the new stars. But could you imagine if we could have got one like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14?
Whew. Oh man, I
Right.
don't. That's a tough one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, see, the difference between the matchups at the time, you have to think about the individuals, and this is the part that's kind of conflicted. I think it
Mhm.
would be a knockout, drag out fight, but as good as Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart matches, like let's look at like WrestleMania 12. As good as that match was, that match could have been better. And they know that because they had both said if we had just trusted each other, there was still so much much more we could have done.
Really?
You know what I mean? I remember watching the Rivals DVD with Bret
Mhm.
Hart and Shawn Michaels. He said Shawn Michaels just says, I remember just begging him to like just trust me out there. Like I know we don't see eye to eye, but just please trust me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? When guys have to work with each other, sometimes there's a resistance and a pull against certain things because they're protecting how they look, or you don't want, somebody to try to pull a fast one and, kind of bury you in the midst of, kind of
And we can't
outshining
forget
you.
what Shawn Michaels did the year before to his best friend.
I mean, yeah, and to be honest with you, you can't forget what Bret Hart did it to his brother-in-law, the British Bulldog at SummerSlam. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's
Well, that was a different story though,
but the thing is,
because
what I'm saying is,
Davey was high.
I mean, he might have been, but what I'm saying is, regardless of the situation, they both went out there to do the same thing, right? They
Yeah.
both went out there in losses and said, "I'm gonna go out here and lose. I'm gonna put you over because that's my responsibility. But I'm gonna make myself look better than you in a loss." So you look at the situation like, all right, Brett's like, okay, well, I got to put Davey over, no problem, because they could have easily called an audible and say, well, no, he's not in best shape. We're gonna change the ending of the match. Bret Hart still did his job. But that put him to the upper echelon of out of that. I'm leaving the IC title picture because now I'm headed to the world title picture. And this loss is going to propel me. Same thing with Shawn Michaels. Okay, Diesel, they want to go with you, big man. I get it. I'm going to lose to you. But at the same time, I'm going to show you that you really can't mess with me. Like, you my
That's-
guy, and we're going to ride together, but you really can't touch me. And now I got to show everybody back there in front of you, like, this is why you can't really bang on me. And then not too long after that, Big Diesel decides that he has to go elsewhere.
The next night, Vince said, "All right, you know what? We're gonna make Shawn a face." After he was adamant about not making Shawn a face.
Yeah, because you got to think about the psychology of what they were doing. Wrestlers always talking about their move sets, like, "Oh, you can't do that. That's a babyface move because the crowd's going to pop."
Yeah,
And then, but they're doing certain things, so it's like, "Oh, you're supposed to be a heel." But if you're not paying attention to wrestling psychology, you're not going to pay that any mind. Like a crossbody was a big deal because that was considered a babyface move because the fans weren't used to seeing what that was considered high flying moves at that time.
yeah.
Right? You're supposed to be a bad guy, but then you're doing a crossbody, knowing the fans are going to go crazy. Come on now, what are you doing? You're putting
That's what
yourself over.
Bret said. He rewrote the match with him and Owen because of that. Because he said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! All right, Owen, all these high flying moves. These fans gonna cheer you. This is New York. This is Madison Square Garden. We got to switch up this whole match." And it's funny you brought up the trust factor between Bret and Shawn, and you hear about their relationship. They had more of a trust factor. I ain't gonna say a better match because they've got better as they went along, but they had more of a trust factor in '92 at the Survivor Series when it was Bret was world champion, Shawn was intercontinental champion. It's just nobody remembers it. But it's like, man, and like I said, that one probably would have been, that would at WrestleMania 14, fantasy booking here, Bret and Shawn at WrestleMania 14 would have been straight up, fisticuffs. We out there, following, the 97 Survivor Series. Let's pretend Bret is staying and they have the match. And, let's say Shawn goes over. Now we get the ultimate, Bret finally gets his win back at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that would have been huge. You know what I mean? Like, especially you kind of stick with Bret Austin, like you said, at 13, and then follow up at 14. You know what I mean? I think that would have been huge, and then you probably can go back to Bret Austin again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and then finish up with
definitely.
that. So
yeah, Austin was rising. I know I was listening to Corey, Glenn, and Keith on Wrestling Marks of Excellence. They do just that shows now what if, so they take a different subject, And one of the things there was, what if it was it was basically, what if the click, I mean, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall didn't leave, but it led to a conversation, and Corey brought up a point that he think that would have been a triple threat match, Bret, Shawn, and Austin, and he think they would have put Austin over. But I think you got to get, it's fun to think about stuff like this, but I think you eventually, like you said, get the Bret and Austin later, but you get that one more match between Bret and Shawn.
I think would have been an issue, honestly, because if Click guys today, man, Shawn wasn't working with anybody else besides those guys.
Yeah,
I think we might have Razor Ramon having a world title run at some point.
I was telling Glenn that when we was talking on the phone, because you remember that's what Bret said.
Yeah,
Shawn wanted to work with all his friends, and he said he could get another run out of Razor. And I think, and you also got to think this too, with Scott Hall in WWE, he's not going to WCW. He's had under a little bit more structure. So, I think, we probably would have eventually seen, probably a heel Razor Ramon.
Yeah, I mean,
being a cool,
probably wouldn't be hard to do.
Yeah, being a cool heel, and Shawn, Shawn was that ultimate baby face in '96. I think maybe even in that that Sid spot, right, where Shawn puts over Razor just so that he can get the belt back in Texas.
Right. Makes sense, man. You got your booking hat on today.
Yeah, he does. I mean, hey.
I mean, that's what makes these conversations fun, man. I swear.
Yeah.
Like that's like, even just like these what if scenarios, you know what I mean? And you take like facts and conversations from different guys over the years, and you say, hey, I wonder what would have happened if we found ourselves in this situation. Like I like, with all that being said, to piggyback on what you were saying, I would have loved to see Diesel and Undertaker continue their feud out. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought there was still a lot of legs, and like that was one of my favorite feuds.
I think we don't get the streak. I think Diesel wins. And
yeah,
WrestleMania,
I think you would have to,
because you got to think. Also, just think about WrestleMania booking too, right? Usually, it's not too many like faces as we get moving forward. So I think that's the heel win in the semi-main event, because you're going Shawn with the ultimate, boyhood dream.
Would does Taker have to lose at WrestleMania though?
Well, like, at that time, it wasn't a thing. I think the streak just was a happenstance.
Sure, they said it was. Yep.
Yeah, I went back and looked at it numerous of times, and I'm like, it was just because of the stories that he was involved in.
Mm-hmm.
It made sense. Like, it wouldn't have made sense for him to lose to Kane. It wouldn't have made sense to, obviously, Giant Gonzalez. But Diesel in this case, because like you said, it would have had legs to it. You could have had Taker lose.
That makes sense.
I mean, and this crazy part is like brother, you just said, I could have easily see it going that way.
Mm-hmm.
So man, that's just this is my favorite time of year, bro.
Yeah. Ed Fry's 2002 on Twitch. Thanks for watching. He said, "What if the curtain call never happens? Then Triple H wins the King of the Ring."
That's the best part about having people on Twitch, because you got these live wrinkles. Because think about it.
Yeah, and
you add another.
Yeah, right there.
And then,
that goes, but see that just throws another wrench in the development of like The Rock, right? Because you get Triple H isn't King of the Ring, right? You get let's put it this way, Triple H is King of the Ring at that point. You don't
Austin
get
316 never happens.
It never happens. Come on, man. That means
you
can stop the conversation right there. Like,
that means
what do we? Nothing. Like, what are we even talking about at that point? No NWO. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask y'all this. We saw Stone Cold coming, right?
Yeah.
Did he need the Austin 316 promo in order to get to where he got to?
I'm still not a fan of it for obvious reasons, but he needed it though. Because when you look at the cultural impact that it had, because I remember every interview you hear Michael Hayes, I think it was the last one I listened to, he was like, look, the next day, like I told him, like, hey, you can't say that. But the next day, the fans made the decision. There were signs. He said this is before T-shirt even happened. There were signs everywhere. And that was back when signs were like It looked like a littered grass. It was just everyone had a sign. You know what I mean? You remember when Raw used to open up back in the day and it was nothing but signs everywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? People they saw it everywhere. They made the decision for what it was. And I just think, man, like we saw Austin coming, but I didn't see him coming that hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll be the first to admit it. Because when you look at old stuff, you look at Austin from the 98 Royal Rumble, by the time he gets to WrestleMania 14, those are two different Austins. He looks so much he looks so polished and ready. And then literally like, oh nah, he's ready for that moment. And then that Monday, it just looked like the Austin era started. Like no one had to tell you. You saw it. It was like, oh nah, we're here now. Like this dude wasn't gonna wait. Like you watch him climbing up from 97 to 98. Like, he's kind of over exaggerating and he's extra over the top. But by the time he gets Royal Rumble, you see it, it's happening. By WrestleMania 14, you see him walking down the hallway with his leather vest on, locked in, ready to go. I said, oh nah, the Austin era was going to happen one way or another.
That's a good point. Now you got me thinking, have we ever seen that? Like, in either way, right? Have you ever seen, because essentially that's what they wanted with Roman Reigns in 2015, right? They wanted, okay, Roman ain't ready. He wins the Royal Rumble. He ain't ready. But by the time WrestleMania gets here, he will be ready, which he wasn't, right? You can make the argument with Seth Rollins in that case. Seth Rollins, like, that match was that was the night of the triple threat match, if I'm not mistaken, with him and Cena and Brock, where he's like, okay, he grew up that night. But by the time we got to WrestleMania, the next night, it was the Rollins era.
Yeah. He was he goes from losing to Randy Orton.
Yeah, early in the night. Going
early
viral.
In the night. And he has once again he has a separate WrestleMania. Here's how good you gotta be that good to have two major WrestleMania moments in one night. Like he has one of the most iconic and epic RKO finishes in the history of the books, and then turns around at the end of the night and he gave us what we wanted. That was like, we did not want Roman to beat Brock that night. And like you said, the Rollins era began, and then that just jump started his entire like main event like run. You know what I mean? Like that established him as a main event player. And you look at his longevity from where he started 2014-ish, 13, 14 to now. You know what I mean? He hasn't been world champion for the last 3-4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
And that's the beauty of it. It's like, that's when you become, like we were talking about with Cody Rhodes, that's when you become an established player where everything you do is the main event. Like I would never look at Seth Rollins and say, oh yeah, he's a mid-card guy. Nah, he's a main event player. So everything he does has value to it. He's not fighting for a spot or attention. Just that, no, when he comes out at 8:30, whether it's 9:30, whether it's 10 o'clock, whether it's 10:45 or 10:50 going to 11:05, Seth Rollins is an established player. And he's been that way ever since he broke into that main event scene. There was never a point in time where we saw Seth Rollins at the top of the card and say he doesn't belong there. Right? And that all started with these WrestleMania moments. Like, of course, the Shield and all that stuff that took place, but those moments were stamped and solidified in history at WrestleMania. And that's what WrestleMania is about. That's what all these, up and coming, need to strive for. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. Like I said, we've gone into so many different scenarios, and like I said, there's these flashpoint moments where you can really mess up the timeline of professional wrestling and its history if one situation doesn't happen or something happens over the other.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, like, possibly there's no Attitude Era
at all. It wouldn't be, because
if the curtain call doesn't happen.
Yeah, if the curtain call doesn't happen, then you have the whole Austin and McMahon. McMahon is the greatest heel of all time. So it's like, you might not even have that.
Right. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart will still be fighting over who's at the top.
There it is.
You know what I mean? The Rock will still be fighting to get to where he needs to be at, because we don't get Rock Austin. Triple H, we don't get DX to where we want DX.
We don't get DX.
You know what I mean? Like we don't know if X-Pac even comes over from, which I'm assuming he will, but does he have the same impact when he cuts that promo?
Right. Right.
So
yeah.
Because think about it.
He
gets fired. He gets fired with the neck injury, right? He comes over, and that was the new version of DX.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Shawn Michaels goes out, Triple H comes out the next day. That Monday, he cuts a promo. It's a new version. It's a new DX. I'm taking DX to different heights. They finally add the Outlaws. They add X-Pac.
He another one who grew up overnight though.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, he went from being the sidekick to the leader, and like he said, it was either sink or swim.
I mean, it's a true testament.
WrestleMania 14 was so pivotal.
And that's the word. Like when you really watch it, and then you watch that next night, that Monday, it changed everything. Like it
years ago, we in season 1 or season 2, we did our top WrestleManias, and I remember you saying it like why it was like one of your favorites, but like to talk about this now, like you really see how it was pivotal. My bad, I just had to get it out.
No, it really is though, because when you watch Raw the week before WrestleMania, and then you watch Raw the week after WrestleMania, it's not the same. You know what I mean? When that glass shatters, and Austin comes down with that winged eagle, and it's funny because I'm literally watching him. I'm watching Austin in this hallway walk to this match, which from I'm like, that was a different Steve Austin. By the time he got to that point, he was locked and he was ready. But you see that same Steve Austin come down with that winged eagle. He looks at Austin. I mean, he looks at McMahon with the new title, throws down the old title, grabs new title, and the Austin era begins. And then we get Mr. McMahon again. Yeah, because the last time we really saw Mr. McMahon in that character was over Bret Screw Bret, and it kind of fizzled after that, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
But then we see the seeds being planted for this character, because that was the first time they said McMahon actually embraced the fact that he was owner or chairman of the WWF at the time, and they were showing us where they were going without us even knowing it. We just knew him as McMahon, the announcer. But then he kind of, you know, hey, look, I'm in charge of the company. It's kind of well known, and Austin, you got to do things though. We're going to address the elephant in the room. You're not the prototypical WWF superstar, but he was the face of a new generation for the way the world was at the time.
Yeah.
Very anti-system, very anti-structure, you know. And he was like, okay, now we have this interesting dynamic between someone that's at the head of your company versus the authority. And this dynamic just kind of naturally grew, and the fans just ate it all up, man. We lived off of it.
Yeah.
Like we lived off of it. Like we went to school every day and church and Sunday school and stuff just for these moments. Right. These moments gave us life, not to mention what was going on across the street, you know, in WCW and what the NWO was doing.
This is what I tell people, man. This is what I be trying to tell people about. Like, yeah, I love wrestling, and the Ruthless Aggression era was cool, but it didn't give us that feeling that when we, you know, me and brother Hugh, I couldn't wait till Tuesday because I didn't have cable. So I didn't have cable, so I couldn't wait till Tuesday to bug this dude. And mind you, in 7th grade, he sat in front of me. So, yo, so what happened last night?
Bro, I lived off Tuesdays.
Yeah.
like I had to go to bed at a certain time. My mother wasn't playing none of that. So I only got to see an hour of WCW, 9 o'clock. I was in the bed. Now my parents was going through a separation at the moment, right? So we was going like in between, like my mother worked that night. So it was this gap between when my father would come over and stay with us while my mother would go work nights. And, you know, of course, my father said that's to bed early when we was younger because he wanted TV to himself. I didn't realize that till I was older. But man, we didn't have from 9 to 11, man. I was like, man, I got to about 9:30 to figure out what's going on. And then all I knew was Tuesday morning, bro, what happened? Talk to me. And somebody either taped it. Somebody said, listen, I taped Sunday Night Heat too, so you got to watch Sunday Night Heat first, and then you watch Monday Night Raw, and you know, go from there. We only had one TV with cable in the house at the time. So, you know what I mean? Like, you just couldn't, you know. Yeah, like when it was just us, we could kind of take grabs of the TV and watch what we wanted to watch, but it was other people in the house. Man, you had to do what you had to do. But
my grandmother, man, when she rests in peace, she was a real one. One day she just got wind, like told my aunt, "Hey, record Raw for Brian," and that was like in it was after. It was on the road to the Royal. You know what? What it was is I had spent the night over her house that like the summer of '98. I mean the Christmas break of '98, And no, we was watching Rock Bottom, the Sunday Night Heat before Rock Bottom. Remember those? How you watch Sunday Night Heat?
Yeah.
And every day she was like, after that Monday, she was like, yeah, record Raw for Brian. And it was that way for the rest of the, until she passed away. And so man, those was epic, man.
See, those are priceless memories. They'll never go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Always embedded in your brain, man. And that's why we do what we do, and we have these discussions, man. It's and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the network. I know I give Peacock a hard time about it, and I'm not a fan of it, but man, to me, that's got to be one of the to be able to preserve those memories and to have so much new and original content about, and from the perspective of those who were involved, man. It's just it helps. It's a good time kind of engaging in the conversation, especially during this time of year.
Yeah, I love listening, like you said, listening just like people, when they talk about like those who was involved, Ed says he was in the building when Austin won the title at WrestleMania
Unreal.
14. And he said at 14 years old, it was unreal. And he was an HBK fan and he cried, but the pop was unreal. I'm like, when I watch it.
Where's he at? I'm literally watching WrestleMania 14 like on this best of WWE Austin. That's literally the match. Like they're in the ring squint off right now.
Man, and it's just like I said, those Attitude Era WrestleManias, they might not always go down like in history, but like you said, just the feeling of the lead up, getting ready for me it was WrestleMania 15. It felt like forever. And it was Rock and Austin. I just couldn't wait.
What? Rock Austin at WrestleMania 15?
Mm-hmm.
Bruh. Yeah, that to this day, yo, like that's my that one will always, that first one will always stand out in my mind because that was that was the perfect time and perfect place. That was my favorite version of The Rock. That was my favorite version of Austin. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, those matches only got better, but I remember that first one was just like, to me, that was the epitome of what the Attitude Era was. Like the fact that Steve Austin had an equal, such as The Rock, and just The Rock just exploded onto the scene on the same level, and they would have to compete for, who's the top driver. When Austin got injured or he was out, The Rock had his run and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then, like I said, and then you had guys that kind of came into the mix that, like Mick Foley. Mick Foley exploded onto the scene. The Undertaker reignited who the Undertaker was. Triple H decided to come out of the ghost of the Generation X and become his own man, as much as I didn't like it at the time. You know what I mean? There's so many things that just came from it, just the natural and professional jealousy and competitiveness of where the business was at the time, and to see just what came from it. You know what I mean?
And that's when they had competition.
And that's what it was though. Like it was just, and it wasn't just coming from one side. You had ECW that was kind of putting the pressure because they were kind of just letting loose on such a small level, and they didn't care. You know what I mean? And WWE had this way of saying, well, shoot, we can take this same concept and take it to this mainstream, to this main television audience and kind of do it our way, with known characters that people are familiar with, rather than people you may not have always been aware of in ECW, and just do some amazing things, man. And like WrestleMania 15 to me, that was the like, it was the first Attitude Era WrestleMania for me. And I was like, technically 14 was, that was the beginning of it, but 15 was kind of like, okay, we're here now. This is this era. And then it just kept going from there.
It's one of my favorites to watch from start to finish because, for the longest time, it was one I was saying was the best WrestleMania, really, for 2 years because then 17 happened. But for me, it was because I think every match, I remember literally the stories in every match. And people give Vince Russo a hard time. But that's one thing, I always give him credit for. Like everybody had a story, whether it was Sable and Tori's story, whether it was Undertaker and Boss Man, when we were still trying to figure out who this higher power was, or if it was Ryan Shamrock being involved, with the guys who going after the Intercontinental Championship, and WrestleMania 14 gets set to come on now my TV because 13 is over, and Ed says he was second balcony Fleet Center over the entrance ramp, it's man, like I said, these moments, like you said, WrestleMania is for the moments. You know, and like, you know, me and brother Hugh got to, you know, attend WrestleMania 28, just being down there, you know, just taking it all in. That was my first time ever seeing Diddy. You know, you see all the
Yeah.
celebrities come out. And realness, you want to see brother Hugh dance, man. He marked out when 2 points he marked out when Shawn Michaels music hit
Oh my gosh.
and when Diddy came out.
It's crazy, man.
I've seen Hugh cut a rug once or twice in my day, man. That's got to be. I'm mad somebody didn't record that.
Yeah, I had a part when Shawn Michaels covered out. It's somewhere, and you see Hugh just going like, rocking back.
I think your best friend has it. Oh my gosh.
You stupid. Oh man, but yeah, man, WrestleMania moments. Y'all good?
Hey, don't just going back to great WrestleMania matches.
Yeah, definitely.
The end of an era. Oh,
Oh,
that Hell in a Cell match was
I
everything.
just watched that Sunday.
That was everything, and it was 10 times more special. You know, since I was there, of course. So I'm gonna be a little bit more biased towards.
Oh, y'all did see that one?
Yeah.
That was, oh my god.
When they lowered the music to Metallica too, Memory Remains.
Ooh.
I was
Bruh.
like, whoever's idea was that should get $1,000 bonus instantly.
I mean, that had to have been a special moment, right? For you guys to.
It was lovely.
You guys got a chance to witness the beginning of it, right, from a distance, but then you kind of got a chance to watch the ending of it in person.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man! Like you can't replicate. So like I said, that goes back to what I just said to Brian H and his members about his late grandmother. You don't pass those moments up. Like they'll never go anywhere.
Yep.
You know what I mean? To sit there and you live through that era, and then you kind of watch it culminate to what it was. You know what I mean? You know, although all three of those guys would still continue to do what they did, but it's just like, man, it was so much psychology, so much symbolism, so much was said without saying a word. You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of why we enjoy what we do, because it's a lasting power. Like when you can do something like that to imprint in the mind of anybody watching what you're doing. Come on, man, that's impactful. And and I think that's what Manny's about.
It's funny you say storytelling psychology. It takes me back to a year before when we was at school in the halls of Morgan State University, and this is when I knew but without knowing that me and the realness was gonna print money together. When we was talking about WrestleMania 27, and it was I had to work back in the almighty blue box, as Dwayne calls it, and so I missed the Undertaker promo with Triple H. And I called him. I said, "Oh, so what happened on Raw tonight?" He was like, "Oh," I said, "What do I need to watch?" Because I'm gonna fast forward through DVR. He was like, "Watch the Undertaker and Triple H." And this is their match leading into WrestleMania 27. He was like, "Those guys went out there and proved that nobody else is on their level, like nobody." I was like, "Okay," and that's when that was the first time the WrestleMania was the first time I experienced the realness of the real Dwayne Allen's intelligence and superior wrestling intellect.
Ooh.
That was a lot of adjectives.
Yeah, it was. That's impressive.
Legion of Doom faced Nation of Domination 2 years in a row. One was the Chicago Street Fight, and then the other when they was LOD. I don't like LOD 2000.
Yeah, they were trying to switch some things up. I mean,
it was sunny. Okay. But yeah, man, we I keep saying this. I'm gonna say it every year till it happens. Hollywood, yo.
Hey,
the brotherhood got to be in the building.
have
The
to.
Hollywood.
That's a good one, man. I think that's the one that'll I think John Cena shows up at that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rock goes into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I think we get like a Rock versus Roman type situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a good one, man. That beautiful new stadium out there. So
yeah, every time they create a new stadium, Vince is like,
yeah, put us on the list, please.
Uh-huh.
Man, one thing I definitely want to do is like, and why we're kind of having this, why we're all here, we want to have an on the air meeting, like we got to start documenting and recording more stuff that we do. Even though we just got to like do a better job of like getting audio and stuff like that, because like I want to do a full-fledged like documentary. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that's my like. I know Brian did one, so now I got to do one. Like when Brian went to his first WrestleMania, that joke was done really really well. I was like, man, this is
Thank
really
you.
good. Like he produced the heck out of that one. Like
I was young in the game.
yeah, it was early, man. What year was that? 2011. What year was
12.
that? 12.
But I started working on it in 2012. It's funny because I'll go back and look at that stuff now. My mom and sister always laugh at my dad because he says a line in there and it's like, yeah, be the best you can be. If you're gonna be a drunk, be a good drunk. And they just
See,
they just like look at it like,
okay.
what?
Really dead.
Because Megan's doing the interview and I'm sitting there recording. So so he drops that line, because it's just like them talking about, knowing I wanted to go to WrestleMania and, it's finally happened. And it's like, yeah, you want to be a drunk, be a good drunk. But yeah, it's I know the stuff you will put together, man. It's gonna be
Off
lit.
the wall, man.
Nah, man, I'm excited about it, man. This is like I said, this is what makes it fun. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'm blessed to be at this age and still be as passionate about it as I was when I was a kid. But it's in a different way, you know. Some
Yeah.
things that we have when we're younger, some things we're passionate about, we can't always carry it with us, but it's a blessing that we have something in our lives that we can continue to carry with us and just, continue to pass it on to other people as well. You know what I mean? And listen to you know, their stories and the things they enjoyed and what made things fun for them too, man. So I'm appreciative of it. You know what I mean? And that's part of the art form of what we do when we produce these type of things. So man, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Actually, that was a battle royal. That's what it was. I just saw the LOD coming out. 'Cause I know somebody gonna be
Yep.
there was not that, I actually had wrestling cards from that night. I had a Sable, like, trading cards, like Top Deck. I had a Sable one, a LOD 2000, and a couple of them. I don't know where they came from, but yeah, I had those years ago. This is crazy the amount of like wrestling stuff it was out there. Like in the Attitude Era, you had yo-yos.
I mean that they were just handing out licenses left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Heck
That's
yeah.
why it's the greatest era.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, do y'all have anything else before we get out of here?
No, man, I appreciate you, brothers, man. It's been a real refreshing conversation tonight on our show tonight. Man, it's just been like I said, it's tough to keep what we do pure. You know what I mean? It's you say to yourself, well, how do you keep something as silly as professional wrestling pure in these type of conversations? But what we're watching may be pure entertainment, man, but those memories are real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those feelings that we have are real. You know what I mean? And you got the brotherhood in the mix, and we're having a conversation in public.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because that's all this is. This is stuff we talk about every day, man. But we get a chance to come out here and get people involved, and then, like I said, they can give their input, and it just adds so much wrinkles. It's these good conversations, man, and it's almost like a chance to reflect on these memories. And every year at WrestleMania, whether we're together or not, we're all watching that same show. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then when we get together, we're gonna have those conversations again and again and again and again. And as long as we continue to find ways to keep enjoying these moments of WrestleMania and those moments continue to be special, man, we'll have so many great memories to last for a lifetime. There's so much craziness right now going on in the world. You know what I mean? But to take a moment and just kind of enjoy what we do, man, I can't thank y'all enough. So it's WrestleMania season, man. It puts you in a different space mentally.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
He was the S. He was like saying, "Yep, that was good enough. Yep, that works."
But yeah, for me, like it's always fun. I see stuff, people trolling in the Wrestling Realm group on Facebook. On Facebook, join it. But if you're on Facebook, join it if you're not in the group. But people say, how excited are you for this WrestleMania? On a 1 to 10, 3, 2, or -10. I'm like, look, it's not that serious, you know.
It's really not though.
It's WrestleMania, you know, and I think when you get through your head that it's about moments, it's about crossover appeal. For many people, they are actually people the same way there are people who don't watch football but watch the Super Bowl. There are people who do the same with WrestleMania.
Bingo.
You know, and with it being on Peacock, you're going to put people who going to draw money. It's just the same reason
Stupid
why it's named
Peacock.
WrestleMania Backlash, because of Peacock. You know, because you want to get those other people. And Ed, we appreciate you. They appreciate you guys tonight. It was a great listen. Appreciate you tuning in and supporting. You know,
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so
chiming in, man. We love your input, man. Thank you.
yeah,
Absolutely. Like I
especially
said.
sharing your memories. You know, you're the first person I ever talked to that was at WrestleMania 14. So that was pretty cool to hear.
That was dope, man. The fact, like, it was crazy because I'm telling you, I'm literally watching this Best of WWE Austin, and as he was talking about it, like literally the match was just about to start.
Yeah,
And I'm like, man, that's look, even in the podcast, you still having WrestleMania moments. That was a moment. You know what I mean? Like, he just happened to be tuning into what we were listening to tonight, and he just had, hey, listen, I was there, and I'm like, man, we're having a whole conversation about it, and then I'm watching it while we had this conversation, man. That's what WrestleMania does for the people. Gives us moments.
Exactly. That's the name of the show. WrestleMania is about the moments.
Boom. There it is.
But all right, folks, we'll catch y'all. Well, I don't know. Y'all might be here next week. Y'all know I'm gonna be in Dallas next week. So maybe y'all catch the Real Dwayne Allen and Brother Hugh, and I might be able to call in depending on the schedule because I've seen the agenda and it's wild. But I can't wait.
Same that place.
So if you're in Dallas, make sure you come holler at Brian H. Waters, and we can chit chat. The wrestling community gonna be out there. The Black Wrestling Coalition gonna be out there, and yeah. Till the next time, folks. Too sweet.
Too sweet, baby.
Brian Waters.